One of the most common questions I get from you is, I heard that Kegels can be bad in pregnancy. Is that true? The answer in this video. If you're pregnant and new to my channel, make sure you subscribe and click the bell button below so you don't miss any of my pelvic floor tips for an empowering birth and postpartum recovery. So our question is, Kegels good or bad in pregnancy? Let's first define what Kegels are so we're all on the same page here. So Kegels typically refer to pelvic floor exercises specifically prescribed in the goal of strengthening the pelvic floor. That is a very important nuance to remember here. So when you do a Kegel or a pelvic floor strengthening exercise, you will typically be instructed to contract your pelvic floor as strong as you can so you can really get that maximal recruitment, and you will hold it for a certain amount of time, which can range from a few seconds to 10 seconds. Then you will normally repeat this for up to 10 to 12 reps and do 2 to 3 sets a day. So this is a typical pelvic floor strengthening program, and it is great for people who present a weak pelvic floor. But pelvic floor strengthening exercises are just one type of pelvic floor exercises, and certainly not the only ones. There are exercises out there to work on the coordination of your pelvic floor, others are focused on building endurance, and there's even exercises that work on releasing and lengthening your pelvic floor. So these different types of exercises all use different parameters because they all have different purposes. As pelvic health physiotherapists, we assess our client's pelvic floor and we will prescribe either one of these exercises or a combination of them depending on what the goals are for our clients. Now, why do we worry about everybody doing Kegel exercises during pregnancy? Well, because say you don't have a weak pelvic floor that would warrant strengthening or Kegel exercises, but instead you have a tight and tense pelvic floor that needs more relaxation and release work. Well, in that case, if you start doing Kegel exercises and holding a maximal contraction for 10 seconds and repeat this 10 times and do 2 to 3 times a day, then you may actually increase the tensions in your pelvic floor and make everything worse. And we don't want a tight pelvic floor at any point in our life, really, because it can cause symptoms like painful sex, pelvic pain, and bladder issues, just to name a few. And especially during pregnancy, we definitely don't want a tight pelvic floor for our labor and pushing stage because that could restrict our baby from coming out easily. So that's definitely not something we want. So if we have a tight pelvic floor, what we want is to focus on pelvic floor release exercises and stretching to unwind the tensions rather than increase them. Does that make sense? If you're looking for those types of relaxation exercises for your pelvic floor, I will link one of my videos in the description below to show you what to do. So coming back to our main subject here, I think that the problem is that the term Kegel is often used to describe any type of pelvic floor exercises, which is why it can become super confusing for you when you read a blanket statement from an influencer on social media stating that Kegels are bad during pregnancy. Because Kegels are certainly not bad for everybody, right? Some women do need strengthening exercises in pregnancy, but some may need other types of exercises like the coordination or relaxation of their pelvic floor. Having a proper assessment by a pelvic health physiotherapist can be helpful at clarifying what you should do, especially if you present pelvic floor symptoms like the ones I mentioned in this video. Now, you may have seen that I have a video on my channel that recommends a pelvic floor exercise during pregnancy. And you may be wondering, should I do that one if I have not been assessed by a professional? So for the exercise that I recommend in that specific video, we are really working more on the mobility and the awareness of your pelvic floor, like gentle activation and release without squeezing as hard as we can or holding the contraction for a long time like you would do during a typical Kegel exercise. That is why I feel comfortable showing it to you during pregnancy, even if you have not been assessed by a pelvic health physiotherapist, because I know this exercise is so gentle and it involves a pretty low risk of increasing pelvic floor tensions, even if you present some. So just be careful when you read black and white statements on social media stating that Kegels are bad in pregnancy. Because as we saw today, Kegels are just one type of pelvic floor exercises amongst others, and they can be indicated for some pregnant women. As always, consulting with a professional can bring a lot of clarity as to what you should focus on. That being said, if you want more actionable tips to prepare your pelvic floor for an empowering birth, feel free to grab my free pelvic floor prenatal book in the description below. Thanks for watching.